I agree with everything Dr. Lee just said. Basically, the U.S. uses Taiwan in the same way that the U.S. has used Ukraine. And I said to Ukrainians several years ago, don't let the U.S. use you. You'll end up destroyed. And I say the same to my many friends in Taiwan. Don't let the U.S. use you. The United States government, the security state, first of all, doesn't care about Taiwan. I'm sorry to say it. It cares about its competition with mainland China. And Taiwan is a piece of a game. Second, I use the phrase game because the people who lead the United States, in my view, are maniacs. They're irresponsible. They think that this is a game. They play a game. Who's on top? Who's number one? Who's got credibility? Who can use reputational force? Who can deploy which instruments? But who suffers are the people on the ground. Ukrainians have lost perhaps 600 or 700,000 dead, and hundreds of thousands wounded, and they're losing on the battlefield because of the game that the United States started to play 30 years ago. Now, that was literally a game, I would say, because when it comes to Ukraine, Zbigniew Brzezinski in 1997, a game player of statecraft, wrote a book called The Grand Chessboard, a game. And he gamed out what it would mean for the United States to expand NATO to Ukraine over Russia's opposition. And he reached the conclusion in 1997, well, Russia could not resist. It has no option. It would have to accede. It was wrong. In other words, it was a bad move. If this were a chess game, okay, he would have lost the chess game. But what he set in motion, he and his colleagues, was not a game, but a real-life disaster. The United States would provoke. The United States would move its military eastward. The United States would ignore all of Russia's red lines. But all would be fine, said Brzezinski, because Russia would have no alternative. One of the things he actually wrote in 1997 is that Russia would never end up siding with China, for example. Okay, he made many, many mistakes, as chess players do. But what resulted was a disaster. Now, the United States is doing the same with Taiwan. The United States has a grand strategy, if one could call it that, although there's nothing grand about it and there's nothing wise about it, so I don't view it as very great strategy. But the U.S. grand strategy is to be number one. And it's to be number one in all parts of the world, including in Asia. I mean, how dare China think itself number one in Asia? The United States is number one in Asia across the Pacific. The whole thing is an absurdity. But the U.S. grand strategy, therefore, is to contain China, to limit China, to put a stick in the spokes of China's economy so that China stumbles or falls into crisis. And it's in that context that Taiwan plays the role in the U.S. game, because the idea is bother China, badger China, weaken China, scare China, divert China. And from a purely military point of view, according to a concept that goes back to one of our most dreadful secretaries of state in our history, John Foster Dulles, if Taiwan is controlled, then the first island chain is controlled, and China cannot project its power into the Pacific. And so there's a strategic element of this. We must control Taiwan. There's a problem, though. Taiwan is not America. Taiwan is not an independent country. Taiwan, according to both the PRC and the ROC, is part of one China. And the United States absolutely is provoking. It's meddling. It's unilaterally sending weapons by the billions of dollars now to Taiwan, as if the PRC would say, well, we're going to send weapons to Mexico because and not to Mexico, to Texas, I meant, because we don't like the situation between Texas and the rest of the United States. It's mind-boggling. The United States should not be sending billions of dollars of weapons to a part of a country that it doesn't even have diplomatic relations with, because in 1979, the United States said there is one China, that is our policy, and there is one government that represents China vis-a-vis our relations, and that is the People's Republic of China. All of this is to say, the U.S. is playing a game. It's a dreadfully dangerous, misguided game. I hope people in Taiwan understand. My God, I said it to the Ukrainians, do you really want to be the Afghanistan of Europe? And I would say to the Taiwanese, do you really want to be the Ukrainians of East Asia? The answer is absolutely no. Be careful. Be careful. The United States cannot save you. In fact, all it can do is get you destroyed, because Taiwan will be safe and secure if the United States stops its provocations. This is the irony of the whole situation. Ukraine never had to be destroyed the way it is, and Taiwan can remain safe because mature, grown-up people across the straits on both sides have reached a consensus in the past and can reach a consensus going forward on peace between the two sides. These are two very mature places. These are two places of a shared history and culture, and both need and want peace. And if the United States doesn't put its nose into it, peace actually will prevail across the straits.
Yeah.